Warning, your self-control is a CIA control loop. Hey there, you've probably been white-knuckling your self-control lately, but it feels like the tighter you grip, the more your day just runs you over. You wake up already feeling tense, push yourself harder to get a tiny win, and then you crash and feel guilty before promising to grind even more tomorrow. Here's the funny thing about that cycle. Your discipline isn't actually failing you because it is working exactly how it was designed to. So you're telling me this endless grind keeps your brain stuck in a high cortisol loop on purpose, right? The real question we need to ask is who actually benefits when you never leave survival mode. Stay with me for a bit, because we are going to map out this loop, show you who built the casing, and hand you a clean exit. Let's build a quick bridge so we stay grounded in the facts. When you're under stress, your body dumps cortisol and ramps up norepinephrine, which is actually pretty useful for short-term survival. But when that system runs hot all day long, your prefrontal cortex starts to throttle down. And that is the specific part of your brain that weighs options and says no when it matters. Your decision space shrinks until you start defaulting to basic habits and perceived threats, which isn't some weird theory, but just the stress response nudging your brain into a short horizon mode. Behaviorists mapped these loops decades ago as simple feedback systems where you compare yourself to a standard, see the gap, and push to close it before starting all over again. Historically, this whole process got a lot of industrial polish. Early behaviorism treated humans like they were just programmable units. Then wartime production turned high output into a moral virtue. And finally post-war corporate management scaled that reinforcement to the masses. Later on, self-help gurus started to moralize the grind. Apps began gamifying your daily streaks, and hustle culture turned total exhaustion into a status signal. That is the real nudge, because self-control has been reframed as a piece of compliance technology. The central question is whether self-control is actually neutral, or if it is just a control loop that hijacks your autonomy. The stakes here are very real, since chronic stress flattens your identity and stalls your creativity, leading to a quiet moral injury that piles up when you say yes while your body is screaming no. You can perform at a high level and still feel completely hollow inside. Here is the roadmap, so you know exactly where we are going today. Act 1 maps out the loop you've been running, while Act 2 shows where that frame came from and how it got under your skin. Act 3 breaks the loop with concrete protocols like timed interrupts and sovereign reps. And then Act 4 rebuilds your autonomy, so your effort finally serves your values instead of just hitting metrics. I promise there will be no empty pep talks here. You will leave this video with drills you can run tomorrow in the wild, whether you are stuck in meetings or buried between emails. We aren't trying to add more effort to your plate, but we are definitely changing who holds the leash. Alright, let's name the loop and then start tracing its gears. The control loop exposed. Let's call this thing what it actually is. The discipline, cortisol, compliance loop. It's a cycle that starts when you feel a threat, whether that's a looming deadline, a falling number, or just a silent comparison to someone else. Your internal script fires off immediately, telling you to tighten up and push harder without asking any questions. You get a temporary performance spike because stress chemistry works like rocket fuel, but then the inevitable crash hits. You end up wired and tired, so you blame yourself and promise to exert even more control tomorrow, which just resets the entire loop. Pressure leads to a spike, then a crash, then shame, which makes you recommit even harder until you eventually forget who is actually in charge of your life. You need to label the gears of this machine, so you can hear them click into place. The trigger is anything your system tags as a threat, like inbox pings, calendar blocks, or even the thought of not being productive enough. Once the trigger pulls, your script tells you to tighten your posture, your breath goes shallow, and your jaw clenches up. Your mind narrows down to urgent binaries where you either win or fail, and it feels like everything has to happen right now or never. The reward for all this is just a bit of narrow relief when you knock out 3 easy tasks to clear a microcliff of anxiety. You get a tiny dopamine pat on the head, but the cost is a total loss of self because you trade real meaning for a quick hit of feeling busy. Cognitively speaking, this loop shrinks your entire world down to a tiny point. Your tunnel vision locks onto whatever reduces your anxiety the fastest instead of focusing on what actually matters most. You start following rules so intensely that you stop noticing if they even fit your life anymore, and you develop a massive aversion to anything new. New paths feel way too risky to a brain that is biased toward threats, so you start worshipping consistency and calling it character, while your curiosity literally starves to death. The physical signs of this are incredibly easy to spot if you know what to look for. You'll notice a clenched jaw, shoulders creeping up toward your ears, and eyes fixed in a hard stare. You might catch yourself holding your breath between emails or feeling your stomach tighten up at 10 in the morning. Even food stops being something you enjoy and turns into mere fuel because pausing to actually taste something feels unsafe when you're under the script. Here is the double bind that keeps you stuck in the mud. If you succeed at your tasks, you stay trapped because the relief you earn just reinforces the idea that the script works. Your brain thinks the whip is the only way to get results, so it keeps the whip out and ready for next time. If you fail, you just double down on the grind and bind yourself even tighter to the process. Either way, the loop wins the day and you lose your autonomy. The wildest part is that this loop can actually make you look like a high-functioning superstar. Bosses absolutely love it because your calendar is full, your metrics are glowing, and you respond to every message without ever flinching. Meanwhile, the actual human part of you that asks why goes completely mute. That silence is the real cost of the operation, and it's really just obedience wearing a much better brand of clothing. Now, don't get me wrong, I am definitely not anti-discipline. Discipline is a fantastic tool when used correctly, but discipline without sovereignty is just obedience with a better PR team. The loop swaps out your personal why for an external must, and then it tries to convince you that the knot in your chest is proof that you care. It is basically like carrying a loud fire alarm in your pocket and trying to use it as a compass. You can hear the loop talking if you listen to the words you use. Urgency is everywhere, with phrases like have to, must, and can't stop dominating your internal monologue. Binary thinking takes over, making you believe that you either go hard or you are fundamentally weak. Invisible rules start to creep in, telling you that mornings must be optimized and rest is a dessert you only get after enough pain. None of that is actually a law of nature, but it feels like one because cortisol makes certainty feel like the only safe harbor. You probably recognize the micro-stories that play out every single day. You open your laptop and see 10 tabs, so you go for the easiest email just to feel competent for a second. You promise yourself you'll do the deep, important work after a few small wins. But then the clock jumps 3 hours ahead. Or maybe you lay down at night with a brain that is still sprinting, so you swear that tomorrow you'll finally be disciplined. You set a 5 a.m. alarm and wake up already braced for impact, repeating the same cycle over again. That isn't a lack of willpower. That is the loop functioning exactly how it was designed. This is where things get really tricky, because the loop fuses your identity to your sense of safety. I am disciplined eventually becomes I am safe, which makes stopping to ask if a task is worth your life force feel like a dangerous move. Your body treats your own autonomy like a threat, because being independent might mean changing the rules. In a world biased toward threats, changing the rules feels like you're asking for punishment, and that is the ultimate trap. While all of this is happening, your metrics are slowly turning into mirrors of your self-worth. Things like streaks, dashboards, and reaching inbox zero become surrogate threat signals that keep you on edge. A broken streak pings the same part of your brain as a social snub, so you aren't actually chasing meaning anymore. You are just dodging a digital flinch, and the loop absolutely loves that you've outsourced your peace of mind to a progress bar. I've seen the moment everything changes for the people I work with, and it usually starts with a simple realization. The first time they stopped on purpose in the middle of a stress flinch and named it out loud, they said, "I'm in threat bias, not truth." The spell didn't break forever, but the gears finally got noisy enough to notice. Once you can actually hear the machine running, you gain the power to interrupt it. Let's look at the stakes in plain terms, because they are higher than you think. If you stay in the loop, you might hit your output goals, but you will also flatten your entire inner life. Creativity requires slack and varied input, both of which are strictly banned by the loop. Your relationships will start to sour because resentment always grows in the places where boundaries have died. The moral injury you get from saying yes when your body is screaming no doesn't leave a very pretty scar. We need to make this machine visible so we can dismantle it. The loop is a simple machine that follows a predictable path. A threat cue lights up in your environment. Your body braces and your mind narrows down. Quick action earns you a small hit of relief. A crash follows the temporary high. Shame recruits you for even more grinding. The cycle repeats. You cannot fix this problem by adding more grind to the equation. You fix it by regaining the rights to decide your own state of being. First, you have to map out the machine and see how it works. Then, you have to learn how to touch the brakes without feeling a mountain of guilt. Finally, you have to rewire what actually counts as a win in your book. We will get there, but if this is the machine, we have to ask who built the casing in the first place. Neuroscience, how the loop locks in. To understand why this loop has such a tight grip on your life, we really need to look under the hood at the biology. When your system tags something as a threat, your HPA axis kicks into gear and your cortisol levels start to rise. Norepinephrine sharpens your signals and gets your body ready to move right this second. Short bursts of this are totally fine, but if you keep that chemistry humming all day, the cost shows up in the prefrontal cortex. That part of your brain starts to brown out, and while you can still function, your ability to think long-term or switch tasks gets throttled. You end up defaulting to whatever habits or rules are already cached in your system, usually someone else's priorities. Here is the funny thing about how your brain works in this state. It starts assigning way more weight to any signal that promises to reduce the threat quickly. This means that punishment-based learning takes the lead, and you remember what helped you avoid pain rather than what helped you build meaning. If you miss a deadline once while you're stressed, that memory burns into your brain forever. If you have a deep, creative session under that same stress load, your brain doesn't tag it as safe enough to repeat. The loop quietly shifts your entire aim from what matters to what keeps me from getting hit. Your habit circuits absolutely love consistency when you are in a state of high arousal. The pathways in your basal ganglia will always pick the most reliable action that costs the least amount of energy. That is a great system when you are trying to avoid a tiger in the woods, but it is terrible when you are trying to navigate uncertainty. The system steers you towards short-term tasks that offer quick relief, like clearing an inbox instead of inventing something new. Because cortisol biases your attention toward what is narrow and known, anything novel starts to feel like a heavy tax on your system. When you add that prefrontal brownout into the mix, you get a very specific mental profile. Your working memory trims down, which makes juggling complex steps feel much heavier than it should. Your cognitive flexibility dips, so you find yourself clinging to the first answer you find. Your inhibitory control weakens, just enough that you let one more email slip past the gate, even when you know you should stop. You aren't broken. Your brain is just doing triage to preserve fuel by picking the cheapest patterns available. Now we have to layer your identity on top of all that biology. Under chronic stress, your brain starts to tie the idea of safety to the idea of predictability. If being disciplined has historically prevented you from being punished, your system fuses those two things together. This is why any move that loosens that discipline, like taking a break or questioning a goal, feels like actual danger. The guilt you feel when you stop isn't moral data. It's just a body alarm wired to a survival tag. Social mirrors make this whole situation even worse than it already is. Metrics, streaks, and leaderboards act like surrogate signals from your tribe that tell you whether you belong. If you break a streak, your nervous system treats it like a social threat or a red notification dot. These peripheral cues add up over time, from read receipts to delivery pings, and they keep your HPA axis from ever settling down. You never actually return to a baseline of calm, so the mental brownout never fully clears. There is also the issue of tolerance, where the relief hits start to fade the more you repeat them. The same micro-win that used to make you exhale now feels weak, so you up the effort to chase that same feeling of ease. This is basically the hedonic treadmill, but wearing survival clothes. The more you rely on the grind for relief, the more grind you need just to feel okay. Eventually, your system normalizes high arousal as your default state, which is why actual calm can feel like boredom or even a threat at first. Another piece of the puzzle that most people miss is something called default mode rigidity. When you're under stress, the background storytelling in your mind gets incredibly sticky and hard to change. Rumination loops and self-critique start to escalate, and you find yourself playing out future catastrophes on loop. This steals all the mental bandwidth you need for creative thinking, so you push even harder to compensate. That extra push feeds the same chemistry that killed your creativity in the first place, allowing the loop to protect itself. From a learning perspective, this punishment-first bias changes how you receive feedback from the world. Critical comments start to punch way above their weight class, while subtle praise just slides right off of you. You begin to optimize your life to avoid heat instead of pursuing your craft, which completely skews your practice. You start stacking easy reps where you won't be judged, and avoiding the risky work where you would actually grow. Consistency might look strong from the outside, but but it is entirely fear-shaped underneath the surface. The physical signatures we talked about earlier aren't just random accidents of anatomy. Shallow breathing reduces your carbon dioxide levels, which can make your focus feel tight and incredibly urgent. When you have a tunnel vision gaze, it signals a threat to your midbrain and keeps the loop spinning. A tight jaw or rigid hands broadcast a brace signal to your entire nervous system, which limits your motor output. That is exactly why your typing might feel crisp and fast, but the actual writing feels wooden and lifeless. Does stress ever actually help you get things done? Sure, in short bursts, acute stress can sharpen your execution for a specific task. But chronic, unbounded stress will eventually melt the executive systems you need to remain sovereign over your life. If your day never allows your chemistry to downshift, you will keep picking the safest next action and calling it discipline. The loop becomes self-justifying because you can point to your output and say, "See, I'm productive," while your capacity for choice slowly withers away. Here is the checkpoint you need to carry forward as we move through this. If your wins only happen when you are physically braced for impact, your brain is learning that being braced is the only way to be effective. That specific lesson is what locks the loop into place. To unlock it, you need proof that being calm can also deliver wins, and you need tools to catch the threat bias before it drives your next choice. Your biology is actually ready for that shift. It just needs a different set of reps to get there. Since this wiring didn't just appear out of nowhere, we have to ask how it got trained on such a massive scale. Who exactly built the casing that keeps feeding your nervous system these constant cues? To understand why your body thinks compliance is the same thing as safety, we have to look back at the people who designed the mirrors you've been staring into. Origins, where this frame came from. To understand how this pressure got into your bones, we've got to watch how the machine was built. It all started with early behaviorism setting the mold. Back in the day, John Watson wanted psychology to be strictly about what you could see and shape in a person. Then Skinner took that idea even further, arguing that all behavior is just a function of consequences. His logic was simple. You reinforce the stuff you want and you extinguish the stuff you don't. It was clean, it was testable, and for factory owners, it was absolute gold. No inner life was required for this model, just a steady stream of inputs and outputs. Later on, guys like Carver and Shire wrapped this in fancy feedback language where you set a standard, measure the gap, act to reduce it, and then measure again. That loop didn't stay tucked away in university labs for long because managers everywhere grabbed it and ran. Industrial management in the early 1900s was already completely obsessed with throughput. Taylorism had workers timed down to the very second, and behaviorism finally gave leaders a science-wide frame to build environments that shaped human actions. Companies started rolling out quotas, piece rates, time clocks, and visual boards to track every move. Output became the ultimate virtue in the workplace. If the needle on the chart moved, you were considered good. But if you missed the mark, you felt the heat. The loop we just mapped out, threat cue, tighten up, and then relief, was now officially embedded in the average workday. Meanwhile, World War II turned factory production into a matter of national survival. Factories ran non-stop while posters told everyone to do your part. And that's when the moral frame fused permanently with the metric. After the war ended, that high-pressure frame didn't just relax, it professionalized. Organizational behavior management grew rapidly in the 1950s and 60s, applying those same reinforcement tricks to sales, safety, and corporate compliance. The basic play was always the same. Define the target behaviors, track them, reward the hits, and punish the misses. They used training films, badges, and leaderboards, which were really just early versions of the dashboards living on your phone right now. Social influence research added even more pressure from a different angle by proving that surveillance plus salience makes people comply. If you know you're being watched and the rule is loud, you're going to follow it. Now just swap the word boss for app and tell me that isn't exactly what's happening in your notification bar. Here's the funny thing. As corporate America scaled this system up, the self-help industry stepped in to sell it back to you as a character trait. The late 1900s were packed with books that basically moralized productivity. The message was everywhere. Work harder to be a better person, wake up earlier to be worthy of success, and sacrifice everything now to earn peace later. Every moment of stalling was framed as a personal weakness rather than a signal from your body. Guilt did all the heavy lifting in this era. If you weren't hitting your numbers, the gurus told you that you lacked will, not air to breathe. So you tripled down on effort instead of agency, and eventually physical and mental pain got rebranded as progress. Then the app economy took all that moral energy and turned it into lines of software code. We got streaks, badges, red dots, and red receipts, which are all just microdopamine hits designed to pull you through microtasks. The same negative feedback architecture, compare, correct, and compare again, now lived right in your pocket, buzzing at you all day long. Hustle culture in the 2010s wrapped the whole thing in a specific aesthetic involving grind reels, sleep shaming, and gaining status from pure exhaustion. Rise and grind wasn't just a catchy motto, it became a full-blown identity costume for people to wear. People started flexing their own depletion as proof of their worth. And well, no kidding, the nervous system learned that being braced is the only way to stay safe. Meanwhile, something else was happening on the margins of power that we shouldn't ignore. Governments and intelligence outfits were very interested in the mechanics of behavior control. The specifics of those programs are messy and often pretty ugly, but the documented thrust of the research was clear. Environment and cues can steer people wherever you want them to go. Sensory load, sleep patterns, and constant signals are the things that shape human compliance. Now, I'm not saying your favorite to-do app is some secret PsyOp. I am saying the broader culture learned, very publicly, that humans are incredibly cue-driven. And the most profitable products of the last 20 years have been built specifically to be those cues. Workplaces followed suit as KPI boards replaced the old idea of quiet craft. Open offices were designed to maximize visible compliance, so everyone could see who was working. Email became a 24/7 pipeline of micro-threats, filled with pings you can't unsee and clocks you can't stop. Even the promise of flexible work usually just meant flexible intrusion into your private life. If you were reachable, you were expected to be reachable at all times. The loop never got a chance to wind down because the digital mirrors never blinked. Every new tool promised to boost productivity, using the same old lever. Make the gaps louder, shrink the relief down to a few clicks, and keep you in constant motion. Here's the subtle pivot that finally sealed the deal. Freedom itself got rebranded as the need to maximize throughput. Don't want a boss? Fine, be your own boss, and then whip yourself twice as hard. Autonomy started to mean you chose the grind, not that you actually chose the aim of your life. Gig platforms crown people with independence, while paying them by the task and rating their performance by the second. Creator tools sold the dream of liberation, then tied your actual income to daily streaks and watch time. Even wellness culture snuck in compliance by telling you to track your sleep or you failed at recovery. It's basically like trading one manager for 12 tiny ones living inside your phone. So you grew up inside a system that taught your body the same lesson from 10 different angles. Being good equals output under watch. Missing a goal equaled heat from the system. The language shifted over time to words like optimize, level up, or stay consistent. But your nervous system didn't care about the vocabulary. It recognized the underlying pattern of a threat cue, a physical tighten, and then a brief moment of relief. The loop didn't need a specific villain to keep it going, because it had architecture. What nobody bothered to tell you was the actual cost of living this way. When every gap in your performance is made to feel loud, your natural curiosity goes quiet. When you're being rated every single hour, taking a risk starts to feel lethal to your career. When relief is just a click away, the search for meaning, which requires wandering and failure, looks like a dangerous waste of time. And when discipline is just how you keep the heat off your back, you'll eventually confuse compliance with actual character. This is exactly why your body thinks compliance is the same thing as safety. History trained it to feel that way. Industry scaled the process, software personalized it, and the culture praised it. So of course stopping feels wrong to you. Of course trying something new feels like a heavy tax on your energy. You were never broken to begin with. You were just very well trained. Okay, but how does all that training turn into your daily nervous system script? Let's name the 6 moves modern self-control runs through your day, 6 scripts of modern self-control, and watch how they steer your choice. Script 1 is threat priming, which is when you start the day with a whip instead of a plan. You wake up, glance at your phone, and boom, you're hit with unread emails, red dots, and someone already posting their big wins for the day. Your system tags a threat before you've even stood up out of bed. The inner script snaps on, telling you to hurry because you're behind and you need to fix it right now. So you skip the part where you sense how you're feeling and sprint straight into tasks you didn't even choose. Here's the funny thing. None of those digital cues actually asked you to panic. But your body learned that panic is what moves the needle. So the day begins in a braced state, and choice doesn't even get a vote. Script 2 is micro-avoidance, where you take on tasks that look easy so you can stack up some quick wins. You tell yourself you're just building momentum, but really, you're just buying anxiety relief on a layaway plan. You check the inbox, send Slack replies, make tiny edits, and do some calendar cleanup. You feel busy, safer, and competent for a moment while the big, important thing sits there like a live wire you're afraid to touch. So you promise yourself you'll touch it after just 3 small wins. But the clock slides and the wins multiply because each one shaves the edge off the threat. It's basically like eating saltines when you're starving. It feels like food for a second, until it doesn't. Script 3 is the shame bribe, where you promise yourself peace after pain, and then move the goalpost. You say that if you finish this one block of work, you'll finally let yourself rest. You crush the block, but the relief window slams shut because a new gap in your productivity starts screaming even louder. You tell yourself a story that real professionals don't stop here, so you add 5 more minutes, then 10, then you decide you'll just rest tonight. That rest eventually becomes a mix of doom scrolling and guilt. The bribe works because your nervous system believes relief is something earned by compliance, not something granted by choice. So peace becomes a carrot that just keeps hopping away. Script 4 is monotony worship, which is when you confuse pure stamina for mastery and end up crushing your own curiosity. You lock into the same reps, the same tools, and the same cadence because novelty pings your internal threat sensors. Consistency feels like a virtue, so you spend your life grinding in straight lines, even though learning requires variation, and craft needs a bit of wobble. Without any novelty, your brain stops updating its model of the world, and you just get faster at doing the wrong thing. Well, no kidding, the work starts to feel flat after a while. You've taught your system that anything new equals danger, and the result is a tight output with incredibly shallow growth. Script 5 is metric idolatry, where you chase the numbers and ignore the actual meaning of the work. You start serving the dashboard by tracking streaks, counts, hours worked, calories burned, steps, and views. Numbers are clean and objective, so they feel more true than your own intuition. You optimize your entire life just to make those charts happy. But the weird part is how fast your actual purpose slides off the table. The metric becomes the mission, and the mission becomes don't break the metric. When a number dips, it punches your threat circuits, and the loop snaps tight again. You trade one thoughtful, slow choice for 10 quick ones that make the chart smile. And while your life looks busy, your work forgets why it exists. Script 6 is self-betrayal light, which is when you say yes even though your body is screaming no. You feel the tight throat, the heavy chest, and the not this feeling, but you override it because the calendar says it's important. Maybe a leader asked for a favor, or you just fear being seen as soft by your peers. These little betrayals happen daily, and while they look polite on the surface, they really start to add up. Each one teaches your system that your inner signals can't be trusted. Over time, you stop hearing them entirely until they start screaming in the form of headaches, back pain, or sudden rage. The loop frames those as personal failures, asks for more grit, and you just nod because that's the script. Watch how these 6 scripts play together by the hour to keep you trapped. Threat priming sets the initial brace for the day, while micro-avoidance burns through your daylight while keeping your anxiety just low enough to function. The shame bribe stretches your work sessions past the honest edge of your energy. Monotony worship removes any novelty, so you don't have to feel fear, which unfortunately stalls your learning. Metric idolatry supplies a constant stream of surrogate threat cues to keep you moving forward. Self-betrayal finally seals the deal because even when you notice the cost, you override the feeling to maintain compliance. They aren't just separate habits. They are one single nervous system strategy with 6 different faces. These are matters of stakes, not just abstract theory. These scripts make you reliable, fast, and praised by the system, right up until the moment they make you brittle. Your curiosity dries up, and your sense of humor leaves the building. You begin to resent people who aren't braced like you are. You can't even land and relax after work because your body equates stillness with failure. Your sleep gets cut, your mornings start out harsher, and the only way you know how to feel okay is to push even harder. That is the loop celebrating its victory over you. So what are you supposed to do with all that? You start by naming them in plain English. Use terms like threat whip, easy wins, moving carrot, same, scoreboard, and the soft no. Put those labels where you'll actually see them, on your desk or on your phone lock screen. When one of them shows up, say it out loud to yourself. So you're telling me we're doing the moving carrot again? That simple act breaks the trance just a little bit. Then you can choose on purpose. Either run the script consciously with a timer and a hard stop, or interrupt it and switch your state. We'll wire those interrupts next, but first, let's watch these 6 in motion across a single day. Day in the life, the loop in motion. Morning hits before you even wake up. There's that familiar phone glow and a cluster of red dots, including a late-night Slack ping that sits in your brain like a pebble in your shoe. Your body is already 3 steps ahead of your mind with shallow breaths, a tight jaw, and narrow eyes because your internal threat system is primed. You don't actually pick a plan for the day. The plan picks you, and you dive into your inbox first just to clear it out. One quick reply somehow turns into 5. A calendar pop-up adds more heat to the pile, and that first cup of coffee goes down like liquid armor instead of something you actually enjoy. You skip looking out the window, you skip a morning stretch, and you skip sensing anything at all because the only goal is making the noise stop. Meanwhile, all the easy wins start lining up like snacks on a counter. You handle quick confirmations, small edits, and a document rename that makes you feel like you've made progress for about 6 seconds. You tell yourself that momentum is the only thing that matters, but here's the funny thing. Your brain is cashing relief checks while the important work sits there aging. You see that big task, you flinch, and then you promise yourself you'll get to it right after this next batch of emails. That batch keeps refilling because every micro-win shaves off a tiny bit of anxiety, which teaches the loop to keep serving them up to you. It's basically like trying to bail water out of a boat while the tap is still running at full blast. By late morning, the tunnel vision is fully turned on. Notifications start acting like cattle prods, and you keep your gaze locked tight on the next ping, so you don't have to feel the larger question of what you're even building. Food becomes fuel rather than a pleasure, so you chew on autopilot while scrolling through a feed with your other hand. Micro freezes start to arrive, which is that statue-like stillness you try to call being locked in, even as your shoulders creep up toward your ears. The big task just sits there humming, and when you finally open it to skim the page, your chest lifts in a panic before you decide it's too much and close it again. You tell yourself it's just one more email or one more dashboard check, because you need relief now and you'll worry about the craft later. Midday arrives, and you try to push yourself into some actual focus time. You block out 90 minutes on the calendar, but you only last about 12 before a question mark in the 3rd paragraph sends you to a new tab. That tab leads to another, which leads to a message to a colleague to clarify something quickly, and suddenly 10 minutes of your life are just gone. Guilt starts to prick at you, so you make a bargain to crush the next 30 minutes so you can finally breathe, and you do crush it, but only at the shallow work. The shame bribe just moves the goalpost further away. The breath never actually comes, and you tell yourself that real pros don't stop when things start to hurt. Your nervous system just nods and tightens its grip. By early afternoon, decision fatigue is firmly in the driver's seat. The deep work now feels radioactive, so you swap it out for tasks that have crisp edges like formatting, scheduling, or cleaning up your project board. The board looks back at you with a smile, your body exhales for exactly 2 beats, and your idolatry of metrics pets your hair while asking for more. A teammate pings you for a quick favor, and even though your chest is screaming no, you say yes because you want to be seen as helpful. You want that threat off your back, so you log another moment of self-betrayal and keep moving. 3 o'clock brings the second coffee, and the lie that you'll make up all this ground tonight. That's just the moving carrot talking to you, and you extend your runway because stopping now would force you to do a real truth check. Monotony worship kicks in with the same playlist, the same chair, and the same keystrokes because any kind of novelty would set off the alarms. You feel fast, and you actually are fast, but only at staying inside the lines where it's safe. Learning has completely stalled out, but your activity tracker absolutely loves you for the effort. The end of the day hits in scare quotes because you don't actually downshift, you just slowly leak energy. You check messages on the way to the kitchen, glance at a document just to make sure it's okay, and dinner becomes a cycle of bite, scroll, reply, and guilt. Your partner asks you a simple question, and you answer with only half of your face, while an ache grows where your sense of humor used to be. You promise a total reset after one last pass at the work, but that pass finds 3 more gaps that need filling. The loop applauds your effort, and you tell yourself you're just being committed. Evening eventually turns into a search for rebound stimulation. Your brain has been wired all day, and now it wants a much bigger hit of dopamine. So you flip from your work dashboard straight into a doom scroll. You cycle through videos, reels, and shorts, which is basically the junk drawer of the internet, and you consume sensation without any real meaning. Sleep pressure breaks because the combination of blue light and threat bias creates a state of fake alertness. You feel bad, then you feel even worse for feeling bad, and you whisper a prayer about being strict tomorrow that you don't even believe. Night finally lands, and you lay down in bed feeling completely braced. Your default mode starts spinning through replays, what-ifs, and future fires while you scan for exits and find only more vows to do better. The 5 a.m. alarm becomes a moral contract, and you picture a perfect morning full of lemon water and deep work, as if a fantasy can wash away the shame. You finally drop into a thin sleep that your smartwatch will eventually grade, but at 2 in the morning, your phone lights up the room. You don't even open the message, but your body reacts anyway with a tiny social threat and a micro drip of cortisol that keeps the brownout holding steady. The weekend arrives and you call it rest, but that really just means running errands in sprint mode or going for a long run that you track to the second. You consume relaxing content as if it were a homework assignment, and your nervous system never actually powers down. If you try to sit still for a moment, the guilt alarm starts chirping, so you invent more motion to keep it quiet. You return to work on Monday feeling tired and call it normal, while your bosses call it dedication and the apps call it engagement. The loop just calls it home. This is the exact day the loop wants you to live. It isn't happening because you're weak, but because the architecture of your life is very loud and your biology is listening to every word. You aren't going to escape this cycle with a few pep talks. You have to puncture it with actual interrupts, honest hard stops, and wins that you earn while you're calm instead of braced. And we're going to wire those in next. Myth busting. 5 lies of self-control. Lie number 1 is that pain equals progress. Here's the funny thing. Pain usually just equals narrowing. When you push yourself until the edges of your vision start to blur, your body shifts into survival math, where the goal is to reduce the threat quickly instead of learning deeply. You might feel like a hero because it hurts, but pain is just a loud signal and not actual proof of growth. Real progress looks pretty boring when you see it up close because it's just varied reps, clear stops, and honest reviews. Pain can show up, but if hurt is the only compass you use, you'll steer yourself straight into a smaller life and call it strength. The real question isn't whether it burns, it's whether you can still make a choice while it burns, because if you can't, the pain is the one steering the ship. Lie number 2 is that consistency beats everything else. Consistency without any novelty is just a plateau with some really good branding. Remember that when you're under threat, anything new feels like danger, so people often double down on sameness and call it discipline. Learning actually requires difference, which means you need spacing, context switches, and fresh shapes for your problems. Stamina is a useful tool, but true mastery requires variation. If you just stack identical days on top of each other and polish the same groove, you'll eventually wonder why the work feels so thin. It's basically like running the exact same mile forever and expecting to get a marathon medal for it. You should keep the cadence, but you have to lace it with small, deliberate changes like new constraints or higher stakes. Consistency is just the scaffolding, it isn't the actual building. Lie number 3 is that goals always require sacrifice. The truth is that misaimed sacrifice eventually bleeds all the meaning out of what you're doing. If the cost of your goal is your body's signals, your relationships, and your curiosity, then you're paying for the journey by burning the engine itself. The story we're all sold says we should trade today for tomorrow, but you have to ask what you're actually buying with that trade. If a goal can't survive a gentle pace, some purposeful rest, and a few no's, then it isn't a goal. It's just a threat dressed up in a nice suit. A real sacrifice targets the friction that blocks the truth, like clutter or false urgency, rather than the parts of you that tell you the truth. A clean sacrifice sounds like putting the phone away after 8, not giving up your entire self until the launch is over. Lie number 4 is that the grind builds character. In reality, the grind just builds compliance reflexes. Character is about your values under pressure, while the grind is just a reflex under pressure. When you rehearse the cycle of bracing, acting, and then feeling relief, you're wiring your brain for obedience instead of judgment. People will praise your grit because the outputs are landing, but try setting a boundary or changing the plan and see what happens. That's where character actually lives, but the grind avoids that test by keeping you too busy to ever make a choice. You become very reliable at one thing, which is ignoring the part of yourself that asks why you're doing this. Strength isn't just about raw force. It's about using the right amount in the right place at the right time. Lie number 5 is that rest is a reward you have to earn. Rest is actually infrastructure. If you treat recovery like it's a dessert, you're going to underfeed yourself every single time a gap in your schedule starts screaming for attention. Your internal state will decay, and you'll end up using way more effort just to fake the same outcome you had before. Calling rest a prize keeps you in a state of debt where you're constantly begging for permission just to breathe. You have to flip that thinking and realize that rest is the floor that everything else stands on. You need to pre-schedule your low points, use micro downshifts between blocks of work, and take true off days that aren't just work disguised as active recovery. If your calendar can't carry that weight, then your calendar doesn't actually serve you. You don't earn oxygen. You breathe so your brain can actually do the work. We need to reframe this whole mess as sovereign discipline versus obedience discipline. Obedience discipline tells you to hold the whip, outrun the shame, and prove you care by hurting yourself. Sovereign discipline tells you to hold the reins, pick the target, and prove you care by choosing when to work and when to stop. One of these is powered by threat, while the other is powered by your values. One shrinks your world down to whatever soothes the alarms, while the other widens your world to include everything that builds a real life. It's the same word, discipline, but it involves two entirely different nervous systems. So you're telling me, how do I actually tell which one I'm running on? There are some simple tests you can use. Can you stop in the middle of a sprint on purpose without feeling like you need to apologize? Can you swap a metric for something meaningful and stay completely calm? Can you say no to a request with a clear body and no internal story about why you're bad? If the answer is yes, then you're the one holding the reins. If the mere thought of stopping spikes your guilt, or if a broken streak feels like actual danger, then you're stuck in obedience discipline, even if your results look elite to everyone else. Everything we've talked about so far points toward a major pivot because the loop stays alive by making these lies sound noble. Pain sounds like you're being brave, consistency sounds steady, and sacrifice sounds like something holy. The grind sounds tough, and rewarded rest sounds fair. But wait, there's more to it than that. These slogans also keep the cortisol tap cracked open and keep your choices very small. Once you pull those slogans away, your entire state begins to shift. This is the midpoint of our journey. What breaks the trance isn't a harder push, it's regaining your agency. We're going to flip from using the whip to holding the reins and wire that into some drills you can run in real time. The reversal, sovereignty or stamina. So here is where we flip the script. Most people think the cure for weak discipline is just grinding harder, but the real answer is actually agency. It is not about having more stamina to endure the struggle. It is about having the sovereignty to step away from it. Stamina is what keeps you running on the treadmill inside a cage, but sovereignty is what lets you find the latch on the door and walk out. If your current loop is powered by constant threats, then agency is powered by your internal state, which means you decide how you feel first, and then choose an action that actually fits your values. We can test this right now with litmus test number 1. Are you able to stop what you are doing on purpose without feeling a wave of guilt? I am not talking about stopping because you finally crashed or because your mom called to interrupt you. I mean choosing to close your laptop at exactly minute 37, standing up to take a breath, and feeling completely neutral about it. If that idea makes you feel a spike of shame or panic, it means the whip is still in your hand. True sovereignty means you are the one holding the reins, and you should be able to loosen them just as easily as you tighten them. For litmus test number 2, I want to know if you can downshift your energy and still feel like you are winning. Wins that come from being braced and stressed out do not count for this exercise. Try picking a task that you usually attack under heavy pressure and run it at a calm, steady pace with a hard stop scheduled at the end. If your brain starts screaming that you will fail unless you sprint, you are dealing with a stamina superstition. You have spent so long training yourself to believe that fast equals safe that you now think calm equals danger, but you can flip that narrative with real evidence. Then we have litmus test number 3, which asks if you can change your aim in the middle of a work block. Imagine you are 20 minutes into a project, and you realize the task you are doing isn't actually the right one. So you redirect your focus without any internal drama. If you keep pushing forward just because you already started, that isn't discipline, it is just obedience. Sovereignty is the ability to change course when the truth of a situation changes, and you should be able to do that without asking a metric for permission. So you're probably telling me, how do I actually get that agency when the loop in my head is so loud? The secret is to build ceilings for your cortisol instead of floors for your effort. Right now, your day is probably governed by rules like, I need at least 3 hours of deep work, or I can't break my streak. But I want you to swap those for guardrails that cap your stress levels. Try rules like never work past a 7 out of 10 stress level, or no back-to-back notifications for more than 20 minutes. Stamina floors end up trapping you in a cycle of exhaustion, but cortisol ceilings are what actually set you free. This is where we get into the practical side of things, because agency requires daily reps that are tiny and durable. A sovereign rep looks like this. You pick a meaningful goal, set a target for how you want to feel, and pre-schedule exactly when you will stop. Once you run the block and hit that stop time, you review one single line. Did my internal state match the choice I made? If the answer is yes, you need to lock that feeling in. And if the answer is no, you adjust your state for the next block before you even think about adjusting your effort. The work itself can be anything from writing code to sending emails, but the real win is obeying your values rather than reacting to an alarm. You have to remember that your body has been conditioned to think that safety only exists when you are in motion. Because of that, you need to start small, because 10 minutes of calm work is always better than 90 minutes of braced work. One clean stop that is free of guilt is worth more than 5 hero laps that leave you feeling burnt out. Agency is not a loud or aggressive force. It is something very quiet and precise. But wait, there's more to this than just your professional life. This reversal is about how you eat, how you rest, and even how you talk to people. Can you eat until you feel enough, and then stop, even if there is still delicious food left on your plate? Can you end a phone call the moment your chest starts to tighten and just say, I'm done for now? Can you actually leave a party while you are still having fun? These are all sovereignty drills dressed up in everyday clothes. If stopping feels like a dangerous move, it means you aren't leading your life. You are being led by your impulses. That isn't some kind of permanent character flaw. It is just a result of your training, which means you can train yourself to go the other way. In just a second, we are going to wire up an extraction kit that makes agency your new default setting. We are going to recognize the loop, regulate your state, repattern your reps, and finally reclaim your decisions. It is time to choose the reins over the whip, because your life is much bigger than the cage you've been living in. For our autonomy protocol. Alright, it is time to put the reins over the whip with the 4 kit. Recognize, regulate, repattern, and reclaim. These are 4 moves that you can run anywhere, whether you are at your desk, in a boring meeting, or just sitting between pings on your phone. We aren't out here chasing some fleeting sense of motivation. We are changing the actual state of mind that makes your choices. The first step is to recognize, because you simply cannot steer something that you refuse to name. You need to map out your loop in real time instead of waiting until after the crash happens. Use these 3 tags as a flashlight: threat, script, and bribe. The threat is your cue, like a red notification dot or a deadline, while the script is the physical tightening in your jaw and shoulders. The bribe is that false promise of peace after the pain is over, like telling yourself, just 5 more minutes. When you catch these happening, say them out loud. Threat ping. Tighten script. Moving carrot. It might sound a little bit silly at first, but it is the fastest way to cut through the trance. I want you to start writing down your body tells by keeping a tiny ledger for 1 week with columns for your jaw, breath, and shoulders. Note the specific phrases that pop into your head, like, I have to, or I can't stop, because that language is the specific accent of your loop. When those thoughts start talking, you will finally know exactly who is speaking. You should also map your triggers like you are mapping a city, noticing things like the 10:30 a.m. Slack flurry or the 3 p.m. urge for sugar. The goal here isn't to magically eliminate every trigger, but to stop pretending that they are just random events. You should also start a cost ledger that tracks data instead of guilt, focusing on energy leaks and small betrayals of your own boundaries. Write down things like said yes with a tight chest at 2:40 p.m., or skipped lunch and felt the brain fog by 4. These entries become the receipts that you can use to argue back when your brain tries to claim that the whip is actually working. Whenever the thought, I need to be stronger, shows up, I want you to perform a fast swap and trade it for, I need to get honest. Honesty always comes before effort, and that is how you truly recognize what is happening. Next, we move to regulate, and the 120-second interrupt stack is going to be your new brake pedal. This is a 6-step process that takes 2 minutes and requires 0 theatrics. First, do 3 physiological sighs by taking 2 short inhales through your nose followed by 1 long exhale through your mouth. Second, widen your gaze by softening your eyes until you can see the edges of the room for 20 seconds. This peripheral vision tells your midbrain that you aren't in a tunnel and that you are actually okay. Third, do a micro-release by dropping your tongue from the roof of your mouth and letting your hands and feet soften. For the fourth step, take 60 even steps in a cadence walk, while counting lightly to yourself. Fifth, label your state by saying, I am in a threat bias right now, not the truth. Finally, for step 6, you either pick your next 15-minute goal or you stop working entirely. You should run this stack whenever you feel your internal stress cross a 7 out of 10. If you are stuck in a meeting, you can do almost all of this while seated, and those 2 minutes will change your body chemistry enough to get your brain back online. You don't necessarily need to be perfectly calm, you just need to be steerable. The third step is to repattern, which means now that your breaks are working, you can actually change the route you take. You want to design sovereign reps that make being calm feel useful and make novelty feel safe. I recommend using 15-45-90 blocks for your work. A 15-minute block is just a recon pass where you take one small bite of a project and stop exactly on time. 45 minutes is for your craft, where you take a few passes with brief moments to downshift your energy. The 90-minute block should be rare and used only for deep building, and it must include a hard stop at the halfway mark. You should also make meaning first by writing down one line before every block about why the task matters in physical terms. For example, you could write, if I finish this outline, the Wednesday version of me will be able to breathe easier at 4 p.m. Keep it simple and keep it physical, then set your stop time. Remember that stopping on the stop is the real win, not the total word count or the output. This is how you teach your nervous system that being calm can actually deliver results. Rest architecture is absolutely non-negotiable, so you need to pre-schedule your low-energy moments. Try to have 2 10-minute downshifts before noon and at least 1 in the afternoon. You can create rituals like sitting by a window to breathe slowly for 5 cycles while you sip something warm and stay away from screens. At the end of the day, give yourself a 30-minute sensory downshift with dim lights and quiet music. Shut down your devices with a ritual phrase like, work is done for today, because your brain needs cues that are just as clear as your calendar. I know play quotas sound a bit cute, but they are actually structural requirements for a healthy brain. Give yourself 2 curiosity reps every week where you spend 60 minutes making something completely useless. You could sketch something terrible, bake something weird, or just wander through a bookstore without a plan. Do not post about it, and do not try to optimize it for a side hustle. This tells your threat system that doing something new isn't going to kill you. You also need metrics that serve you rather than rule you, which means separating your lag from your lead. Lag metrics are outcomes you can't force today, like your revenue or follower count, while lead metrics are inputs you actually control. Track only 3 leads, like how many blocks you ran or how many boundaries you kept. You should also set effort ceilings for your day, such as a rule that you will do no more than 2 back-to-back meetings. These ceilings are there to protect the floor of your life. Finally, we have Reclaim, which is all about your decision rights and your boundaries. At the end of every week, do a quick decision audit by listing 10 choices you made that actually mattered. For each one, ask yourself if your values or a metric set the aim, and how stressed you were on a scale of 1 to 10. Ask yourself if you would make that same choice again from a calm state of mind, and circle the ones you would want to redo. That list becomes your laboratory for setting better boundaries in the future. When you set those boundaries, use a script that is clean and direct. You can say no without a long story by just saying, I am not available for this. You can also say yes with conditions like, yes, if we can scope this to a specific task by Friday. Keep your body online while you speak by keeping your hands soft and your breath slow. If your throat starts to tighten up, just pause for a second, breathe, and then finish what you were saying. Boundaries are just reps, and it is perfectly fine if they feel a little shaky at first. You should also build an autonomy budget by picking a specific number of hours that you refuse to sell to anyone else each week. Whether it is 3 hours or 10, you need to guard that time like you are guarding your rent money. Put those hours on your calendar and tell at least one person who will actually respect that boundary. If your week happens to explode, defend at least 2 of those hours and move the rest to a different day rather than slicing them into tiny scraps. Device treaties are what will finally seal the cracks in your focus. Set specific notification windows 2 or 3 times a day for batching your replies, and have silence hours every evening after 8. You can even use ritual exits like deleting certain apps during a work sprint or moving them off your home screen. You aren't fighting against your phone. You are just taking away the cattle prods that keep you on edge. Lastly, do a social detox by stepping away from the leaderboards and muting your streak counts. Choose 2 or 3 human mirrors, people who reflect your values rather than your output, and debrief with them for 15 minutes every week. Talk about one win you had while staying calm and one boundary that you successfully landed. This identity update is the quiet payoff of the whole process. You want to shift your self-talk from "I am disciplined" to "I am sovereign." Write it on a sticky note if you have to, because every clean stop and every honest no is a vote for your new life. Your weekly cadence should include push days, play days, and build days, along with one true day off where you touch nothing that looks like a ladder. It won't be perfect, but it will finally be yours. I'll recognize. Map the loop in real time. Everything starts with seeing. I'm not talking about reflecting in a journal at midnight, but catching yourself right now, in the middle of a flinch. Recognition is the hinge that the entire door swings on, and if you miss this, the rest of the advice is just theory. When you actually hit this mark, the loop becomes loud enough to touch. You need to run what I call the 3-tag scan: threat, script, and bribe. The threat is the cue that lights the fuse, like a red notification dot, a whispered deadline, or a flash of comparison when you see someone else moving faster. The script is how your body and language tighten up, which looks like a clenched jaw, shallow chest breathing, hiked shoulders, and have to or must showing up in your head like the police. Finally, the bribe is the promise your brain dangles to keep you going, such as peace after the pain, or I'll make it up tonight. When you feel that surge, say them out loud as fast as you can. Threat ping, tighten script, moving carrot. Saying the words breaks the trance by just a tiny bit, and that little bit is enough to steer. For the next week, I want you to list your physical markers on a scrappy sticky note or in a phone app. Create 4 columns for your jaw, breath, shoulders, and eyes. Then add a 5th if you have a specific tell like a tight stomach or clenched hands. Every time you feel your internal tension pass a 7 out of 10, tick off what's happening and add the time and context. You might write 10:42 a.m., slack pile, jaw and eyes. And once these patterns are on paper, your day's hot zones will jump right out at you. You also need to log your mental tells, specifically urgency words and invisible rules. When phrases like "can't stop" or "just one more show up," mark them down immediately. If your head starts using binary frames like "finish" or "fail," write out the exact sentence you just thought. When you hear those law-sounding lines like "mornings must be optimized," put quotes around them because they look pretty silly once you can actually see them. Try mapping your triggers like a city map by looking at people, places, screens, and clocks. Maybe it's the 9:05 stand-up that always spikes your stress, or the 2:30 slump you try to medicate with your inbox. You might find that post-meeting rumination steals 40 minutes of your life, or a late-night quick check blows up your sleep pressure. Draw lines between these moments to find the clusters, because you aren't trying to avoid life. You're just trying to stop treating landmines like they're daisies. Start keeping a cost ledger, not to shame yourself, but to keep the receipts on where your life is going. Use 3 categories: energy leaks, missed signals, and moral injuries. You might log a 12-minute doom scroll after a hard task that left you in a fog by 4 o'clock, or a missed lunch signal that kept your stomach tight all afternoon. When you record that you said yes to a quick favor with a tight throat at 3:10, the ledger shuts up your internal arguments with cold facts. You should also add a benefit ledger because, let's be honest, your loop pays you something. Write down the immediate reliefs, like feeling competent after clearing 6 emails or getting a brief hit of calm by keeping a streak alive. Put these right next to the costs to kill the fantasy, and you'll see that you're often trading deep meaning for micro-exhales. Sometimes you'll still choose to take the trade, but being conscious of it is the real upgrade. The smallest and sharpest tool you have is the cue rewrite. Every time the phrase "be stronger" pops into your head, swap it out loud for "get honest." Tell yourself, "I'm getting honest, I'm braced and I'm chasing relief." Honesty softens the body just enough to let your brain's executive center have a vote, and then you can still choose to push, but it's you doing the choosing rather than the whip. Here is a drill you can run in meetings without anyone even knowing: the 30-second microscan. It has 4 beats, starting with naming the threat in 8 words or less, like losing face if I ask a slow question. Beat 2 is tagging the script, such as jaw on, eyes narrow, sound smart loop. While beat 3 is pricing the bribe of avoiding heat by staying silent. Finally, ask yourself if the calm version of you would choose to speak. If the answer is yes, breathe once and ask the dumb, honest question. But if it's no, just say you'll follow up later. Create a trigger map for the people in your life. Not to blame them, but to prepare yourself for the interaction. Think about who spikes your tension, whether it's the detail-oriented boss or the friend who measures worth in hours worked. For each person, write down the default bribe they pull from you, like impress him or prove I'm fast. Next to that, write a counter cue like be clear, not quick, and tape it to your laptop if you have to. Try running a 24-hour echo by picking one day and setting alarms for 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. At each alarm, answer 3 quick lines in your notes about what triggered you, what script ran in your body, and what bribe you took. This only takes a minute, but if you do it for a week, you'll have a highlight reel of your loop with timestamps. That is more than enough information to design interrupts where they actually matter. You probably know this tiny story. You open a document, feel a lift in your chest, and click away, just to grab a fact, before vanishing for 12 minutes. Next time you feel that lift, freeze your cursor and whisper, threat ping, while watching your jaw. If your jaw sets, say tighten script, and then make a choice to either set a 3-minute timer, or just put a bracket in the doc to find the fact later. The win here is seeing and choosing, not being perfect. The last piece is to name your loop out loud to another human once a day with no drama. You could say, I nearly chased a moving carrot after lunch, but I stopped on time. Or admit that a scoreboard habit cost you a deep work block. Social mirrors that reflect the truth rather than a performance help reinforce your sovereignty. If you don't have a person for this yet, just voice note yourself, because hearing your own voice cuts through the story your head is trying to sell you. Recognition is gritty work, and it isn't about pretty journaling. It is about catching your hand on the doorknob and pausing long enough to know which room you're about to walk into. See it, tag it, price it, and then choose. Once you see the loop, you can slow it down, and that's when the brakes can finally start to work. R2 regulate, 120-second interrupt stack. It's time for the brakes. Now that you've seen the loop, you need a way to slow it down while it's in motion. This is a 2-minute stack of 6 moves you can do anywhere, and it isn't about vibes or meditation. It's about state control on demand. Step 1 is the physiological sigh. Inhale through your nose once, take a quick top-up inhale right after, and then let out a long, slow exhale through your mouth. Do this 3 times to dump carbon dioxide and soften that chest tightness, which tells your body the threat is lowering. You'll feel a small drop in tension immediately, which isn't exactly zen, but it is definitely less of a clamp. Step 2 is the peripheral gaze. Let your eyes soften and take in the edges of the room for 20 seconds, looking at windows, door frames, or the ceiling line. Tunnel vision is a major threat flag for your brain, while wide vision signals that there isn't a tiger in the room. Keep your head still and breathe easy while letting the scene widen. If you're on a video call, just glance slightly off-screen and soften your focus, because nobody will notice but your midbrain will. Step 3 is the micro-release. Drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth, uncrimp your hands so your palms are open, and let your feet spread out on the floor. These tiny releases send a full body, stand down, signal without you ever needing a yoga mat. If one specific area won't let go, don't fight it and just move on, because enough other signals will land to make a difference. Step 4 is the cadence walk. If you can stand up, take 60 even, steady steps from heel to toe. You can count lightly in your head or sync your movement to a slow beat. If you can't leave the room, just march in place under the desk or shift your weight from side to side for 20 counts. Rhythm gives your nervous system a metronome, and threat absolutely hates rhythm. Step 5 is labeling the state. Say, I'm in threat bias, not truth, out loud if you can, because naming the feeling separates you from the surge. If you're around other people, just say it in your head or use the shorthand threat bias. Don't waste time arguing with the story your mind is telling you. Just tag the state and ignore the content. Step 6 is choosing your next 15-minute aim or stopping fully. This is binary on purpose, so you either pick one clear target for a small slice of work or you perform a ritual exit. If you choose the work, set a timer, but if you choose to stop, say the phrase, work is done for now. Close the tab, stand up, and change the lighting, because a state shift requires a scene cut. Run this entire stack whenever your tension hits a 7 out of 10, or the moment you catch yourself chasing a bribe. It is much faster than a coffee run, and it buys back your control. You don't need to reach a state of perfect calm, you just need enough steer to make a choice. When you're in meetings, you can trim this down to a stealth mode version. Take 2 sighs, soften your eyes to the edges of the screen, drop your tongue, and keep your hands open on your lap while silently labeling the state. Then you can decide whether to ask that clarifying question or just follow up later. You will feel the difference in the form of less rush to talk and more precision when you finally do. Use physical anchors to prime this stack, like placing a tiny dot sticker on your laptop where your thumb usually rests. Every time you see that dot, check your tension level, and if you're at a 7, run the stack right then. You can even put a sticky note on your monitor that says 3 sighs, wide eyes, choose 15 or stop. There's no need for poetry here, just clear cues. Pair the stack with thresholds in your day. Before you start deep work, stack once, and do it again after any interruption that lasts longer than 2 minutes. Before you hit send on a spicy email, stack once and reread it from a place of calm. Doing this before you leave work turns the stack into a routine rather than just a rescue mission. Make your hard stops honest. If you choose to stop, then actually stop by changing your posture, the light, and the type of task you're doing. If you stay in the same chair, your body will start to bargain, and you'll leak right back into the loop. Stand up, walk to a window, do 10 slow shoulder rolls, and get some water so your brain actually believes the work is over. Expect some friction at first. The first few times you run the stack, your guilt will probably bark at you that you're wasting time. That is just the whip talking, so counter it with a practiced line like, 2 minutes buys me choice. Then, go do the next 15 minutes calmly to prove it to yourself, because evidence is what shuts guilt up. In crisis mode, you have to cap the intensity. Set an emergency lane, rule where you can run hot for 90 minutes, but a hard stop must follow with a stack, a walk, and a quick debrief. If you stay in an all-day emergency, then nothing is actually an emergency. You have to protect the tool for it to work. Even if you're in a low-energy drag, you should still run the stack. The sighs and the gaze often lift the fog just enough for you to pick a humane aim, like 15 minutes of prep or a real nap. Remember, you are regulating so that you can choose, not so you can force yourself to do more. The last thing you should do is teach your team this stack. Imagine if everyone took 2 minutes before a stand-up to sigh, widen their gaze, and name one clear aim. Meetings would get shorter, the tone would get saner, and the loop would lose its favorite playground of group panic. You don't need the whole company to buy in, because just 2 people running clean states can change an entire room. Breaks aren't glamorous, but they are the key to freedom. Recognition gave you the map of the territory, and regulation gives you the wheel. Next, we are going to change the road itself with sovereign reps that make calm useful and novelty feel safe. Build sovereign discipline. Okay, the brakes are working, so now it's time to actually change the road we're driving on. Repatterning is just a fancy way of saying you're designing habits that make being calm actually useful, make trying new things feel safe, and put your personal meaning in the director's chair. We want to add friction where it helps you and make the good stuff feel easy. We aren't looking for heroics here. We're just building a daily groove that your nervous system can actually learn to trust. You should start by using 15, 45, 90 blocks. Think of the 15-minute block as your scout, because you pick one small, meaningful slice of a task and run it while keeping your stress at a 5 out of 10. The most important part is that you must stop exactly when the timer goes off, with no extra minutes allowed for finishing a sentence. That clean stop is a huge win because it teaches your brain that you can be productive without staying in a state of high alert. The 45-minute block is for your real craft, which is just 2 or 3 of those 15-minute passes with tiny downshifts in between them. During those breaks, you should take 2 deep sighs, soften your eyes, or take 1 sip of water that you actually stop to taste. The 90-minute block is a rare beast reserved for big build sessions, but even then, you need a hard midpoint stop at the 45-minute mark. If you feel your internal tension hitting a 7, you either downshift immediately or you end the session because these ceilings are what protect the floor of your life. You also need to bake novelty into your day on purpose by changing just 1 variable per block. You could change the constraint by telling yourself you'll only use bullet points, or that you're allowed to write a truly ugly first draft. Sometimes you should change the context by moving to a different room, using a standing desk, or switching from a screen to actual paper. You can even change the tool by using a pen or a voice memo, or change the audience by pretending you're writing an email to a friend you actually like. Adding these small bits of newness keeps your learning brain alive without spiking your internal survival alarms. It's basically like adding a new spice to a dish instead of trying to swap out the entire recipe. Always put meaning first in a way your body can feel. Before you start any block, write down one short sentence of about 5 to 8 words explaining why this specific task matters right now. You might write something like, "This clears the knot in my Wednesday schedule," or "Future me can breathe if I finish this scope." Keep these goals small and relatable rather than grand or intimidating. Once you've written it, set your stop time out loud by saying, "I am stopping at 2:30 no matter what." Doing this helps you turn the idea of choosing when to start and end into actual muscle memory. Your rest architecture needs to be a core part of the work itself rather than an afterthought. You should pre-schedule your low-energy moments, right in your calendar with titles like Write 15 plus Downshift 3. Between your work passes, try running micro-rituals that help you switch states fast, such as touching some daylight, taking 3 slow exhales, or unclenching your hands. When the day is over, you need a real scene change ritual to tell your brain the work is done. Turn the lights down, close your tabs, do a 1-minute stretch, and say the phrase, "Work is finished for today." If you can physically leave the room, do it, because your brain is very good at tagging specific spaces to specific mental states. Here's the funny thing. Play isn't just some optional fluff you do when you're bored. It's actually structural novelty that keeps your mental model updated. You should give yourself weekly play quotas, like 2 60-minute curiosity sessions where you aren't allowed to optimize anything. Go bake some terrible bread, sketch a lamp really badly, or wander through a hardware store just to touch the different textures. Don't post about it, and don't try to build a brand with it. You are simply feeding the part of your brain that is responsible for solving hard problems sideways. You want to design friction where it matters, so that doing the right thing is easier than avoiding it. Put your deepest, most important task exactly 1 click away from your face while moving the candy tasks behind 3 clicks, or onto a device you don't use for work. It helps to script an entry phrase like "begin ugly" for when you start, and an exit phrase like "enough for now" for when you stop. These routines will always beat raw willpower in the long run. Use metrics that serve you instead of ruling over you by separating your lag from your lead. Lag metrics like grades, sales, or views aren't really in your control today, but lead metrics like how many blocks you ran or how many boundaries you kept are entirely up to you. Try tracking 3 lead metrics and nothing else for a full month while setting strict effort ceilings. For example, you might decide on no more than 3 90-minute blocks a day, or no more than 4 total meetings. When you hit one of those ceilings, you stop. You aren't doing this because you're lazy. You're doing it because you are building trust with yourself. If you want a clean weekly shape to try, aim for 2 push days for high-pressure output and 2 build days for working on systems and skills. Add in 2 play days for your curiosity and research, and make sure you have 1 true off day where nothing you do feels like climbing a ladder. Slot your sleep anchors into the schedule first, then add meals you can actually taste, and then fit in your work blocks. You have to protect that off day like it's your company payroll. Before you start any big sprint, run a 5-minute pre-mortem by asking yourself what might try to hijack your focus. List 3 potential potholes, like hopping between tabs or a teammate pinging you, and pre-choose your counters for them. You might decide to use a bracket to fill in details later, or set a hard stop alarm across the room, so you have to get up. When those potholes inevitably show up, you won't have to negotiate with yourself, because you'll just be following a plan you wrote when you were calm. You also need to repattern your yes and no reflex. Before you agree to any new request, run the TNB check, which stands for time, nervous system, and benefit. Ask yourself if you have real time this week, if you can keep your stress under a 7 while doing it, and if the benefit matches your actual values. If any of those answers feel a bit wobbly, you should give a conditional yes or a flat no. Use a scripted line like, "I can do this if we change the scope," and deliver it much slower than you usually would. Keep your breath low and your hands soft while you say it. On those inevitable low-mood days, don't just scrap the whole plan. Simply shrink the size of your reps. A 15-minute block can become a 5-minute block where you just outline 2 bullets or send 1 clean note. The most important thing is that you still keep the stop and count it as a win. The only streak you should really care about is kept sovereignty, rather than hitting your maximum possible output every single day. I have a micro story you'll probably like about a client who basically lived on adrenaline until she tried this. She started with a 15-minute scout on a scary proposal using only ugly bullets and stopped the second the timer went off. On the first day, she absolutely hated it, and by the second day, she felt a bit dumb but noticeably calmer. By the third day, she actually had a page she didn't loathe, and because she kept her internal tension under a 7 the whole time, she eventually shipped the proposal without a single late-night sprint. Her words were, "I trust myself again." And that is exactly what repatterning is supposed to do. Your brain is definitely going to try to sell you the old deal by whispering that you should just push a little harder today. When that happens, just smile, write down your meaning line, set your stop, and run your scout. Sovereign discipline is usually pretty quiet and repeatable, and it might even look a little boring to someone watching from the outside. But that's actually the whole point, because it's what frees up your best work to be truly interesting. Our 4 reclaim: decision rights and boundaries. Reclaiming is the moment where your agency finally becomes visible to the world. It isn't about working louder or harder. It's about making clean choices that don't require a frantic chase scene afterward. We start with your decision rights, move to your boundaries, and finish with your identity. Essentially, you are taking back the power to call the shots in your own life. Start this process with a decision audit at the end of every week by looking at 10 choices that actually mattered. These could be projects you said yes to, meetings you attended, or favors you did for other people. For every single one, ask yourself who set the goal, how stressed you were on a scale of 1 to 10, and if you would make that same choice again. Circle the ones you would actually redo if you had the chance. That circled list is your official boundary map for the following week. You need a simple boundary script where you say no without a long story and say yes only with specific conditions. Saying, "I am not available for this," usually lands much cleaner than a giant paragraph of excuses and apologies. If you say, "Yes, if we can limit the scope to this one thing," you are showing respect for both yourself and the other person. Try to say these things slower than you want to while keeping your breath low and your eyes steady. If you feel your throat tightening up, just pause for 1 beat, exhale, and then finish your sentence. Boundaries are a physical act just as much as they are a verbal one. It's also vital to build an autonomy budget by picking a specific number of hours each week that you refuse to sell to anyone else. Whether it's 3 hours or 10, put them on your calendar in ink and label them as values blocks or curiosity hours. Tell at least one person who respects you that these hours are non-negotiable for you. When the week inevitably gets messy, try to defend at least 2 of those hours as intact blocks rather than letting them get sliced into tiny scraps of time. Device treaties are great for closing the back doors that let work sneak into your life. You should set specific notification windows where you reply to messages in short batches and establish silence hours before 10 a.m. and after 8 p.m. Use rituals like removing work email from your phone during your big sprints or logging out of social apps entirely in the evening. You aren't trying to fight technology itself. You're just stripping out the digital cattle prods that keep you on edge. Social detoxing actually matters a lot more than most people think. You should step off any leaderboards that try to rate your worth by your streaks and mute the vanity metrics inside the apps you can't get rid of. Instead, choose a few human mirrors who are people that reflect your values rather than just your output. Have a 15-minute weekly chat with them to discuss 1 win you earned while staying calm and 1 boundary you successfully held. This isn't about performing for them. It's just a quick alignment check to make sure you're still on track. Updating your identity is the glue that holds all of this together. You need to shift your inner label from "I am disciplined" to "I am sovereign." And you should probably write that down somewhere obvious. Every time you stop when you said you would, or choose a personal meaning over a cold metric, say that tag to yourself. You are effectively teaching your brain which team it's actually playing for now. Practical guardrails are what make this whole system work in the real world. You need to create redline policies that you refuse to negotiate with when things get busy. For example, you might decide on no meetings longer than 50 minutes or no quick favors after 3 in the afternoon. If your job starts to push against these, offer a specific channel for true emergencies, but make sure you define what an emergency actually is up front. Even if the rest of the organization starts to slide into chaos, your guardrail needs to stay standing. You should also script your scope or no move for when a new request lands on your desk. Run that TNB check again to see if you have the time, and if you can keep your internal tension under a 7. If the benefit doesn't map to your values, you need to either scope the project down or just say no. Keep it clean, keep it brief, and then consider it done. It helps to pre-decide your off-ramp for those times when work starts running hot. You can use an emergency lane rule where you allow yourself to sprint for 90 minutes, but then you must have a hard stop to drink some water and debrief. Write this rule on a card and stick it right to your computer screen. When the chaos finally arrives, you will be following the instructions on the card instead of just riding a wave of adrenaline. Every month, you should do a quick drift check on a single page to see how you're doing. Ask yourself which decisions felt like you were actually steering the ship and where the old habits might have sneaked back in. Look at which guardrails held firm and which ones you accidentally bargained away. This is the perfect time to add one small new rule or remove a metric that you realized you don't actually need. The funny thing is that boundaries become much easier to hold when you actually know what they are serving. You should tie every single boundary to a specific value, like how no meetings after 4 serves your ability to have dinner with your kids. When you realize that no phone after 8 is actually serving your sleep and your writing, the line starts to feel like protection instead of a punishment. You should definitely expect some backlash, because the people who used to benefit from you always saying yes might pout a little bit. Just treat that as useful data, hold your eye contact, and repeat your line once before exiting the conversation. You don't owe anyone a full courtroom defense of your time. You only owe your own nervous system the truth. Try to run one live-fire drill this week by picking a low-risk request and delivering a clean no or a very specific scoped yes. Make sure to stack your habits afterward and feel how your body recovers from the interaction. That is what exercising your decision rights on purpose feels like. Now, you aren't just slamming on the brakes anymore. You are finally choosing exactly where the road is going to go. The 7-day autonomy reset. 7 days of small drills can give you massive leverage, but don't think you're fixing your entire life in a week. You are simply installing new defaults and hitting one clean rep a day to prove that being calm actually works and the whip isn't the boss of you. Day 1 is about mapping and stopping just one loop. Pick your biggest headache, whether it's an inbox spiral, a scoreboard check, or that moving carrot feeling right after lunch. In the morning, run a 3-tag scan during your first stress surge to identify the threat ping, tighten your script, or spot the moving carrot. By midday, you should schedule 5 interrupt stacks for 2 minutes each, even if you feel totally fine, because you're building the brake pedal for your brain. Before bed, write 1 page about where the stress showed up, which bribes you almost bought into, and the cleanest stop you actually pulled off. Circle 1 line you're proud of, so you can go to sleep with proof that you have the power to choose. Day 2 focuses on your sleep sanctum, because we need to get some power back into your battery. Start your morning by setting tonight's exit strategy, which means screens go off by 8, no blue light after that, and your last caffeine hit happens by 1 in the afternoon. At 7:30, perform 1 stack with heavy sighs and soft eyes to trigger a micro-release of tension. Kill the overhead lights, take a warm shower, and read 1 paper page of something that has absolutely nothing to do with your job. Put your phone in a different room and whisper to yourself that the work is done for today. If your brain starts begging for just 1 more check, smile and remind yourself that 2 minutes of scrolling tonight won't help you at all tomorrow. Day 3 is your meaning sprint, where you choose 1 worthy thing you've been dodging, like an outline or a difficult email. Write down 1 why line that connects to your body, something like, finishing this lets Wednesday breathe, so you have a reason to stay focused. You're going to run a modified shape today, doing 15 minutes of scouting, 30 minutes of building, and 15 minutes of tidying with hard stops between each. Add 1 novelty variable, like working in a different room, or making an ugly first draft rule to keep things fresh. The real win here is stopping exactly when you said you would, even if guilt whispers that you should keep going. Label that guilt, stack once, and walk away on purpose to prove that being calm still lets you deliver. Day 4 is the play lab, which means 60 minutes of completely useless curiosity with no posting or content allowed. You could bake a weird recipe, layer a tiny beat with random sounds, or just wander a thrift store touching different textures. The only rule is that if it feels like a ladder you have to climb, it isn't play, so set a timer and stack before you start to make sure you don't turn this into work. When the hour ends, you have to stop even if you're having a great time. That clean stop is what wires a sense of safety around your joy. Day 5 is for boundary live fire practice, where you pick 1 low-stakes request and run it through the TNB filter of time, nervous system, and benefit. If anything feels off, deliver a clean no or a very specific yes that you've scripted out ahead of time. Tell them you aren't available or that you can do it if the scope stays within certain limits. And make sure to slow down your delivery while keeping your hands soft. Afterward, run the interrupt stack and notice the physical release that happens when you set a firm line. Log that feeling as a win for your comm side. Day 6 involves a social rewire to change the mirrors you look into every day. Mute one leaderboard or streak count and batch your notifications into only 2 windows for the entire day. Delete one app tile from your home screen or just log out for 24 hours to break the habit of checking it. Book a real human conversation for 15 minutes with someone who cares about your values rather than your outputs. Share one comm win and one area where you're correcting a drift, then ask them to do the same. If you feel twitchy without the pings, just label it as a threat bias and do something analog that feels like a person actually made it. Day 7 is for your audit and anchor session, where you review the week in 2 simple columns. Look at which loops you saw, which interrupts actually landed, and where you managed to keep your stops. Ask yourself what felt bigger once you ran it through a comm lens. Then circle 3 small, structural non-negotiables to carry forward. These could be things like screens off at 8, or no same-day favors after 3. But whatever they are, write them on a card and tape it to your screen. Tell one human you trust about these rules to keep yourself accountable. Now you need to lock in a weekly cadence by sketching out next week with a mix of push days, build days, and play slices. Drop your anchors first, like your sleep times and silence hours, before you even think about adding meetings or blocks. Put a sticky note on your laptop hinge that says, "Reigns over whip," to remind you who is in charge. When you inevitably forget, that note will be there to nag you back into your new rhythm. I have 2 warnings for you. First, you'll want to go big, but remember that tiny habits you actually keep are better than huge ones that break. Second, someone is definitely going to poke at your new boundaries. Just smile, repeat your scope, and exit the conversation, because you can save the debate for a calm hour that you choose later. By tonight, you won't magically be a brand new person, but you will be a person with actual proof. You'll have proof that stopping doesn't kill you, that boundaries actually work, and that your internal state is yours to steer. That is the lever we're looking for. And next, we're going to handle obstacles, relapses, and edge cases. The first thing that usually happens is overcorrection, where you taste a little calm and then start labeling anything difficult as a threat. You might stop too soon and call it sovereignty, but you've actually mistaken the point of this for pure comfort. You need to build truth checks by asking if the pain you feel is about actual danger or just the discomfort of growth. Run one interrupt stack, and then try the task again for just 3 minutes to see if things get clearer. If your mind stays foggy and your breath won't drop, then you can end the block, but stay honest rather than just being soft on yourself. You are also going to mistake resting for avoidance at some point. So the simple fix is to pre-decide on a minimum viable rep. Tell yourself you'll do a 5-minute scout or a 3-bullet outline, and if you do that rep cleanly and still want to quit, then you can stop. If you won't even do that tiny rep, then you know you're just avoiding the work. There is no shame in that. It's just data you can use to shrink the task even more tomorrow. Pair it with a novelty tweak, so your brain gets a fresh on-ramp that doesn't feel so heavy. Social backlash is a very real thing, because people who liked your old, compliant self are going to test your new lines. They'll ask, just this once, or mention how responsive you used to be, so you need to have one sentence ready to repeat like a broken record. Tell them you can do the task by Friday if the scope stays the same. And if they push back, just say you're keeping these limits so you can do the work well. Then you have to exit the conversation immediately, because you shouldn't argue or try to explain your values to someone who benefits from you being stressed. Identity grief is another one that sneaks in when the machine version of you starts to step back. You might actually miss that fake sense of certainty and the rush of praise that comes with overworking. That ache is totally normal, so just treat it like a taper period before a big race. Name the feeling, grieving the performer suit, and keep one small ritual, like tidying your desk, that honors your old skills without relighting the whip. Add a play rep to feed the part of you that's been starved for fun, and you'll find the grief fades much faster when joy has a place to land. There is also a risk of feeling floaty or disconnected if you push the introspection too hard while you're still braced for stress. The rule of thumb here is to regulate your body before you try to go deep into your thoughts. If you start to lose time or feel unreal, stop the mapping and the meaning work immediately. Stack twice and ground yourself through your senses by putting cold water on your wrists or naming 5 colors in the room. Keep your eyes open and your language concrete. And if the feeling doesn't go away, make sure to get some professional support. High-stakes weeks are going to happen, and they demand an emergency lane where you narrow your focus. Scope the storm by picking 1 to 3 things that absolutely must ship and park everything else for later. Sprint in 90-minute caps with hard stops for water and a quick debrief so you don't lose your mind. Preload your sleep anchors by keeping screens off after 8 and putting your alarm across the room so you can't hit snooze. Write a date in your calendar for when you'll get back on your normal track. And make sure to take a real off day as soon as the crunch ends. Measurement drift happens quietly when your tidy little metrics start breeding cousins, and suddenly you're tracking 11 different things. You need to do a quarterly purge where you list every number you look at and circle the only 3 that actually change your behavior for the better. Gray out the rest, delete a dashboard tile, and mute a streak that isn't helping you. If a metric makes you feel like you're being chased by a cattle prod rather than helping you choose better, it has to go. Relapses aren't a sign of failure. They are just stress tests that you can treat like flight recorders. After you slide back into old habits, run a 2-minute debrief to figure out what spiked your stress and which old script started running. Write down 1 pre-commitment for next time, like stopping at the first sign of a knot in your throat or batching your pings at noon. Then you just need to count 1 clean rep today as a win for your comm side. Sovereignty isn't about never slipping up. It's about having shorter slides and faster recoveries while making choices you'd actually sign your name to. After the loop, markers of true autonomy. This is how you can tell the ground has actually shifted beneath your feet. Your mornings start to get quiet, but I don't mean monk in a cave quiet. I mean a steady kind of calm where you wake up without a frantic sprint already tightening your throat. Your breath stays low in your chest, and your shoulders don't automatically hunch toward your ears before your feet even hit the floor. Because you are moving slower on purpose, nothing actually breaks, and these stable mornings are a physiological giveaway that cortisol isn't yanking on the steering wheel of your life anymore. You find yourself drinking coffee because you genuinely enjoy the taste, not because you need to put on liquid armor just to face the emails. It's a brand new feeling to look out a window for 60 seconds and not feel like you're being hunted by a ticking clock. Spontaneous curiosity starts sneaking back into your brain when you aren't looking. You might catch yourself wondering about a weird shadow on the wall or a specific line in a song, and suddenly you're sketching out a back-of-the-napkin idea, just for the fun of it. You can actually open a book now without feeling the crushing pressure to turn it into a certified masterclass or a productivity hack. When you Google a random question, you don't accidentally spin out into 10 different tabs of research that leave you exhausted. Curiosity used to feel like a dangerous distraction because it wasn't part of the official plan. But now it feels like a door you can choose to open or close whenever you want. You aren't starving for stimulation anymore. You're just sampling the world. On a cognitive level, the space where you find solutions starts to get a lot wider. Problems stop looking like those annoying either or traps where you feel stuck between 2 bad options. It isn't a ship this now or fail forever situation anymore, because you realize you can ship a small version to learn from or just pause and pivot entirely. You'll notice that you're asking much better questions in meetings, like wondering what the actual constraint is, or what would happen if you shrunk the scope by half. That isn't you using fancy management jargon. It's just your prefrontal cortex coming back online after being fried for so long. You can actually feel the click in your brain when a bad plan gets updated fast. And here's the funny thing. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room as long as you're the calmest person who is still willing to change their mind. That binary, all or nothing, thinking starts to fall away in your personal life too. You realize you can actually like your job while still saying no to a project that would ruin your weekend. It's possible to love someone deeply and still set a firm line that they aren't allowed to cross. You can take a rest on a random Wednesday and still be a person who cares about their goals, because the world isn't just big or small anymore. It's finally sized to the rhythm of your own breath in that specific hour. That is what real sovereignty feels like. And it's something you feel in your gut rather than something you need to post about for validation. Emotionally, that heavy blanket of guilt just drops away the moment you decide to stop working. You close your laptop at 5:45, and your chest stays quiet instead of tightening up with imaginary dread. No pretend emergencies start erupting in your head the moment you walk away from the desk. You don't have to bargain with yourself in the hallway about how much more you'll do tomorrow to make up for leaving now. Joy starts showing up without a receipt attached to it, not because you earned it through suffering, but because your nervous system finally believes that stopping is a safe thing to do. You start laughing sooner, not necessarily louder, just faster, because the lag time between seeing something funny and letting yourself feel it has finally shrunk. You'll see it in your friend's face when they realize you're actually present and here again. Resentment starts thinning out in your relationships because you've stopped saying yes with a knot in your stomach and seething about it later. Your boundaries start landing much cleaner, which means your connections with people actually get clearer and more honest. You find yourself able to tell the truth much earlier in the process, telling people you don't have the capacity today, or that you can give them 30 minutes, but not 90. People eventually learn where your lines are, and they stop poking at them, or they keep poking and eventually drift out of your life. Either way, that chronic hum of feeling like everyone is taking from you starts to fade because you stopped giving away energy that your body never offered in the first place. Creatively, your error rate starts getting a lot more interesting. You begin making brand new mistakes instead of just repeating the same 3 misses dressed up in different clothes. These are truly novel errors that teach you something you never could have learned by coloring inside the lines. You might write a section of a project that goes totally sideways, but then a much better idea grows out of that mess the very next day. You try out a new design constraint and hate the result, yet you still find a cleaner shape that you never would have seen if you were moving at max speed. You start taking longer bets on yourself, not because you've become reckless, but because you finally have a long enough horizon to see the finish line. The quick hit of dopamine loses its charm once you've tasted the way calm compounds over time. Ethically, your choices start to match your values even when the pressure is turned up high. This is the part that nobody is going to clap for in public, but you will feel the truth of it deep in your bones. When an email comes across your desk that could juice a metric, but requires lying by a hair, you just pass on it. If a client pays great, but constantly trashes your team on calls, you either change the scope or you walk away entirely. In those meetings where staying silent would keep you safe, but telling the truth would help the room, you pick your moment and ask the slow, honest question. Your character finally gets to rise to the surface because the daily grind isn't sitting on top of it anymore. You'll start noticing these weird, small wins that seem insignificant but mean everything. You might stop 3 minutes early just to stretch and find that you come back with a much cleaner line of thought. You end a phone call while the conversation is still warm and friendly, and as a result, the next one starts off even better. You leave a party while you still actually like everyone there instead of waiting until you're exhausted. You eat until you've had enough, and you don't need a complicated rule to tell you when to quit. You even get bored sometimes, which is actually a sign of incredible health. Boredom just means your system isn't dosing itself with stress hormones every 10 seconds, just to avoid feeling something real. All of this is going to land a bit messy at first, and you should expect to wobble. You'll probably run a 90-minute sprint when you only meant to go for 45. You might state a boundary a little too sharply and have to go back and fix it later. You'll definitely overcorrect at some point and call a healthy stretch of your abilities a threat to your peace. But the slide back into old habits gets shorter every time. The recovery happens much quicker, and the person making the choices actually looks like you. It's not just the loop wearing your clothes and pretending to be a human being anymore. From the outside, it might look like not much has changed at all. You're at the same desk, working on the same projects, with the same basic calendar skeleton. But the scene on the inside has been completely inverted because effort isn't the boss of you anymore. Your internal state is. You spend more of your time inside rooms you actually chose, at stress levels you can actually steer, moving in directions that map to values you'd be proud to tell a kid about. You don't need to publish that sentence or prove it to anyone. You just need to live it on a random Tuesday. If you zoom back, the markers of this change are actually pretty simple and almost boring. It's just steady mornings, spontaneous curiosity, having wider options, and knowing when to stop. It's about lighter resentment, making new kinds of errors, and making value-aligned choices when things get tense. None of this is edgy or particularly #able for social media. But when you stack enough of those boring moments together, your life starts to stretch out. It isn't stretching to hold more grind. It's stretching to hold more of you. That is what life looks like after the loop. It isn't heroic, it's just human, and it is absolutely available to you. That shift is the entire point of this whole conversation. When the grind stops being the god you worship, your world doesn't actually shrink. It just gets honest and wide. You don't need to find more willpower to white-knuckle your way through life. You just need the right to choose your state of mind before you choose your work. If this message landed for you, I want you to run the 7-day reset and come back to tell me what changed in your world. Subscribe for more of these unplugged breakdowns, and please send this to that one person you know who is crushing it, but clearly feels empty inside. Let's end it here.